Who would be a worse hand to the king than Sir Criston Cole?
Did Larys learn that proximity is more important than intelligence when it comes to getting a new job?
And who are the sexier Goldenlock twins? The Cargyll twins, the Lannister twins, or the Olsen twins?
We'll answer those questions and so much more on this episode of the Joffrey Podcast.
Smooth as always. Many important matters require king's attention. I'm king now. King now. I am king. I am kiss it. Kiss it again when I return. Your fingers or your king doesn't fingers discuss your battle plan. He's one, but your fingers or your tongue. I am the king. I'm telling mother. Oh.
My name's Bubba, and with me as always, who holds others to higher standards than he holds himself, it's Catfish.
Yeah, Bubba, I am here, and I am so excited. We're already a bunch of the way through this season.
We are. Guys, we're going to be breaking down Season 2, Episode 2 of House of the Dragon. It ended with brother-on-brother battles. Will Catfish and I survive? My brother, Catfish. Guys, we're going to be playing our classic match games, and you listeners have come up with some of the best answers ever. We're going to talk about all the characters, the best scenes, the ethics, the morals, and Catfish is still always going to have to choose a side for the week. Team Black with Rhaenyra or Team Green with Aegon.
And as always, I'm going to have my MVP of the episode. They don't need to be on the same team of the episode. They could be different. Bubba, I'm going to give you my ranking, but before I do that, I just want to tell you.
Yeah.
When we come to blows and I finally finish you off.
Yeah.
I'm going to celebrate. I'm not going to knife myself in the stomach. It is party time. No one is going to have my beautiful face anymore. Damn you. All right, Bubba, I am going to give this 8.2, what I like to call double S's.
Wait, double S's?
Yeah, small folk surprises.
Ah.
Bubba, there was a lot of talk in the seasons around the Game of Thrones, and even kind of in the first season of this show. It was all about the big people. And one of George R.R. Martin's, I think, tenets was, his thing was always like, look, when the royals like get into beefs, it's the small folk who suffer. We didn't see that so much in Game of the Thrones. We didn't see that so much in the first season, unless you refer to this, you consider the small folk, the babies that hideously died in childbirth. But tonight.
Wait, what about the crab feeder? He wasn't small folk.
Not small enough.
We
didn't follow him. We didn't follow him enough. And tonight we had 4 scenes of different small folk, including 3 in a row. And if you thought they were going to be subtle with this, when our boy, the one-eyed wonder, goes to see Madame Seavey, she practically lays it out. She says, it's right straight from George R.R. Martin's lips, when you guys tussle, it's the small folk who really get it. And then we get Hugh, who is like, he's suffering, our boy Hugh. And then we get Alan of Hull, the guy who got congratulated last week. The sea snake had his eye on him.
Yeah,
and
you saved the sea snake.
This is kind of a strange. Last week it was kind of a strange. I guess you had to assume he was going to come back, but it's a strange thing. And even at that time, Alan was like, no need to belabor the point. Everything is fine. He has to tell his brother. His brother is so excited. He's like, yeah, you're going to be there. And Alan's like, listen, you know what? You know what makes life better? Staying as far away from these people as possible. Absolutely. And then in a later scene, we see Double M.
Double M?
Yeah. Multiple accented Missaria talk about how she has been screwed. So it's interesting that, we've got so many episodes of so many seasons of Game of Thrones. Get the entire first season of House of the Dragon. And now they're like, hey, you know what? We're just going to pile all these small folk on here and hope that you care about them. Now, Bubba,
Yes.
The reason why I really love this, as we know, Otto Hightower, before this, the actor who plays Otto Hightower, before this, whenever I see him, I still flash back to Notting Hill with him answering the door in his underwear. He's a full-on comedy dude. So it is great to see him in this role. But my favorite part of this episode is when he does a very subtly comic thing. When our boy, the boy king, says it's all about action, and Sir Criston Cole has done something, and Otto's slow turn and look when he is like, oh shit.
Jeez.
And he says, what has Criston Cole done? And then Otto goes ham. Whoa. He goes ham on the boy king.
Dang.
So, oh man, so good. I enjoyed a lot of things going on here. It's just delicious. I mean, the look of the bypassed queen at the King's Council. Our girl's like, I didn't want to have any children killed. I lost my child. And our girl that passed over queen is looking over at Daemon like, I know what you did. I mean, people are, and then
Daemon would be terrible. Daemon would be terrible at playing mafia. Like, you know, who's in the mob, who's the killer, or werewolf. He couldn't play werewolf. It'd be like, who's the werewolf? And Daemon would have that grin the whole time. Terrible.
I mean, what happens tonight is so interesting. It is almost like a mirror image, because what happens is both sides lose someone who is very, very key to their side by confronting them. And Bubba, I'm going to give you, I got to give you a lot of props, because last week when you were talking about how there's stuff that happens with Daemon that we don't see. And last week we didn't really see whether he said it. And then even this week, you could assume that he's kind of like saying, well, maybe I said whatever, but it's still unspoken. And you know what? It didn't bother me last week, but you picked up on it a week early. It bothered me tonight. And that's kind of why I brought this episode down. Let's have people admit what they're doing. Let's know what's going on.
Yes. Well, Catfish, you say you bring this episode down. You still only went, what, 8.2 out of 10? I mean, that's pretty dang good.
8.2 because I loved all the action. I love people giving other people tongue lashings, and I'm not talking about Sir Criston Cole for once.
Oh my goodness.
Bubba, what about you?
Me? Well, Catfish, last week was real tough, only 6.5 out of 10, and I got some great listener feedback of people who didn't agree with my take. And listeners, we love your feedback at PHQ on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, Facebook.com, YouTube at PHQ. We want to hear from you. This week, there are a couple of scenes that I think, this scene doesn't do much, and it's really just here to set up later things, including the scene of the brothers who are building the ship, and even good old Hugh with his daughter about, you know, the small folk that you're talking about. The scene didn't do too much, but to me, that's the only strike. So that's why I'm going 9 triple S's out of 10.
Wait, also S? Wait, triple S's?
Right. Well, your double S, we know what it stands for. My triple S is at the end of the episode, we have unleashed a super shitstorm. This is so messy and so terrible, and that's what we want. We want it to be ridiculous and terrible, and it's logical that it's becoming so absolutely terrible. This is what we need. This is the drama we need. I was totally engaged, except for those scenes where they didn't pull me in, because it's just like, hey, remember these characters? We'll do something with them. Remember this guy? We'll do something with him. That's the way it felt to me. So otherwise, incredible highs. Now, I want to talk about your grading a bit, Catfish. You're talking about how our boy Aemond goes to the brothel, and the last thing you want to hear in the brothel is have the woman you're with talking about the small folks. I mean, that's tough that's tough for everybody. But then also, I want to say that, you know, you're talking about brother, you don't want to get mixed up with these people. No, get on a dang boat, man. You're building a boat. Get on a boat. Get the blank out of blank. I mean, this is a blank show that's about to start happening, and it's going to be lovely. It's going to be drama. It's going to be what we loved from Game of Thrones. So I am so excited for this season.
I love it, Bubba.
I'm ready. Give me the next episode. Great. But again, listeners, we love to say, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. I've already said it, at PHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook.com, YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, we need you to hit that like, go down, give us your thoughts on this episode, type them in the comments, give us that like, we really need it. If you're listening on audio podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, give us those reviews. Also subscribe. We need subscriptions. We want you on this journey with us as we pretty much watch everybody die. There is nobody safe in this ridiculous,
especially the small folk.
No, goodbye, small folk. You were good while you were going. Hey, Catfish, we do have some news before we dive into this episode deep. And
I love news.
This one I consider slightly odd news, but I feel like we have to mention it. House of the Dragon, everybody was like, hey, can a show follow Game of Thrones? Will the show do well after Game of Thrones? Well, season 1 did great. Season 1 premiered to 9.9 live viewers, either watching on, old school cable or satellite HBO or streaming. 9.9. This year, season 2, now season 1 premiered late August. People are kind of back in their routines, at least here in the States. They're not on summer vacations anymore because people have to go to school, that kind of stuff. 9.9. This year debuts in mid-June and lost 2.1 million people. So it's still a great rating. Season 2, last week's season premiere, got 7.8 million, which is great across, Max apps and, cable and satellite, but down 2.1 million. What do you think? Why do you imagine, Catfish, that season 2 premiered with fewer people watching live at the time?
Wow, Bubba, I don't even know. That is crazy.
It is crazy.
I mean, I guess it could be the delay. I mean,
that's a good point. 2-year delay is really long. I think that's a good call. Part of me also wonders, and back when Game of Thrones was ending and they were talking about follow-up shows, I always talked about how Game of Thrones had a built-in book audience, but what was great is the book audience didn't know the ending. This series has a book audience, but anybody can go on Wikipedia and find out the ending. Now, the show could change it, and the show changes the facts about various things, as we talked about last week. But there isn't going to be any surprises. So if HBO is making you wait 2 years for the next season, do you think a bunch of people just went and read the ending and didn't come back? We don't know exactly why, but 2.1 million compared to season 1. Interesting.
I don't know. I would think most people would want to watch it, especially if, again, I have not watched it. I have not read it.
Right.
But my understanding is this is not like a fun, in-depth read. This is more just like a straight history book, right? So why would people? I don't think it's people trying to catch up to the ending.
No,
in the books.
I'm just throwing things out. I already mentioned it could be that a lot of people take vacations here in the States in mid-June, and it's Father's Day. Who's going to watch something live on if you're taking dad out for dinner or something? Listeners, we don't know, but we do know that the A Song of Ice and Fire Westeros world on HBO will not end. Filming has begun this week on yet another spinoff to Game of Thrones. It's called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. This story takes place approximately about 80 years before the Game of Thrones timeline, before Robert's Rebellion and all that stuff, Catfish.
But what I love about this is, so let's see. They start doing this show, Game of Thrones.
Right.
And they're like, this is fabulous. We're going to start this show. And by the time we get to it, this will have all been written. That didn't happen. So then they're like, you know what? We're going to do this other thing. It's a show. It's based on a book, but it's not really a novel.
Right. That's true. Right. That's House of the Dragon.
But it is written. And now they're like, you know what else we should do? We should do an entire show that's based on like a few short stories.
That's exactly right. A few short stories. And that's what I wonder is, can this new show, the third show, A Night of Seven Kingdoms, succeed? Why would I question that when both House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones have been big successes? Well, Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, they have very similar DNA. They're about political, people plotting, scheming, people trying to get the Iron Throne. Like there's a lot of similar DNA. These short stories don't really have any tie to, I want to be on the Iron Throne. They're kind of short stories. And so
they're kind of a little bit humorous.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes.
This is
lighter in tone. Lighter in tone.
Yeah. This is. Yeah. There are no dead bababies in these short stories at all, or much of dead anything from what I remember.
There is some violence, but it's such small scale. Here we're talking about control of 7 kingdoms in 2 shows, and then the next show is going to be, you insulted my honor. So it's going to be interesting. Guys, you excited?
Here's the other thing, right? Because this show is so far previous to Game of Thrones that you
House
can
of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon is so far previous to Game of Thrones that you can just do just about anything because the world can change so much.
Yep.
And so you can have really consequential things happen that aren't limited by what we know is going to happen in the future. We talk about this when we cover our Star Wars podcast, which we do on Parsec Passion podcast. The Acolyte. We covered Andor. We covered Ahsoka. We covered Obi-Wan.
Right. Hold on.
We've covered it all.
I want to talk about that. In other words, for these Star Wars shows, The Acolyte, Andor, and Obi-Wan, in some ways, they're all prequels to kind of stories we already know. And so, you're saying it. You're calling it perfectly. This A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it does maybe have to go small scale because, no spoilers for it, but being only 80 years in the future, or excuse me, Game of Thrones is only 80 years in the future for it. And so there is a chance that some of those older characters on Game of Thrones could appear as infants or young kids in this show, so just careful.
Right. And if anything, not anything big or paradigm shifting can happen here, because as you said, it's only 80 years before Game of Thrones.
Yep.
And so, Game of Thrones, there's not talk of things that happened 1,000 years ago, but there's stuff that talked about definitely the previous 100, 200 years. And so you can't really mess with that too much. So I'm really curious why they chose this. And I think they're going to have a problem either way. I think because people are going to think it's more Game of Thronesy, and it's definitely not kings and queens. And also they might have a lighter tone. So I don't know.
It's going to be real interesting here. We've always been talking a lot about House of the Dragon, how this season it went from 10 episodes down to 8. Well, for this A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it's going to be 6 episodes. It's going to be released next year, 2025. That also is kind of telling us that House of the Dragon season 3 won't be out until 2026, another 2-year wait. How's that going to do to the ratings? Listeners, we're bringing up a lot of subjects. Hey, I want to mention that if you liked the most recent season of True Detective Night Country, Finn Bennett, an actor in that's going to be in this Night of the Seven Kingdom. All our fans of our Jonathan Strange and Mr. Knurl podcast, Lost Hope, the actor who played Jonathan Strange, Bertie Carvel, he's going to be in this new show. Let us know if you're excited. Tell us down in the YouTube comments. Reach out to us on social media. We want to hear from you.
Love it. Yes, give it to us.
All right, Catfish, we've been so serious on some of this stuff. You know what that means.
Oh, it's time for our copywritten jocularity.
It's a match game, everybody.
Love it.
We put out these questions live when the episode airs on Twitter, Instagram Threads, our YouTube community page. I want to point out that last week I wasn't actually getting notification from Threads. So all you people who gave us great responses in Threads, we're going to go over your match game answers from last week just in a bit. But Catfish, are you ready to play House of the Dragon match game?
Ooh, I don't know, Bubba. Okay, yes, absolutely.
Prince Aemon is so depressed.
How depressed is he?
At the brothel, he asked Madame Sylvie to blank. Alrighty, Catfish. This is a tricky one. We know you love to keep it clean, and so won't do any tasteless jokes at the brothel. Prince Aemon is so depressed at the brothel, he asked Madame Sylvie to
feed him only the black jelly beans.
Okay, I guess.
I bombed on that one. I really bombed. Bubba, I knew it was a bomb. I knew it was a bomb. Look, they can't all be winners. That's the one where the audience goes, oh. And Gene Rayburn either gives you a sad look or Alec Baldwin takes out a gun and shoots you. Oh, no, that's tasteless. Edit. All right, Bubba, I'm going to do it for you. All right, Prince Aemon is so depressed.
How depressed is he?
At the brothel, he asked Madame Sylvie to
get wet from his tears. Catfish, you're doing non-verbal answers to this terrible answer I've given. Our audio podcast wants to know your reaction to my answer. Is there a match?
God, I certainly hope not.
How terrible. Okay, this one was a tricky one. I apologize, listeners. I came up with this terrible match game question. But you listeners, you came up with some wonderful answers, so let's get to it. Prince Aemon is so depressed at the brothel, he asked Madame Sylvie to stop touching his wiener and look him in the eye. That's from at Dooley's Left Legs on Twitter. So very good. So very, very, very good.
Oh my God, I almost did an eye thing, but I did not.
All right, we got to, boy, that's our only response so far. Boy, it's so tricky.
Maybe ask better match game questions.
All right, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it'd be good. I thought there could be some things there. Maybe I'm missing some. Listeners, we've got 2 more match games. They're much better questions coming up, so ignore that question entirely. Catfish, last year when we did the Joffrey podcast on the House of the Dragon, one thing we would do right after the first match game question is talk about the best scene of the episode or your favorite scene or moment in the episode. Do you have a favorite scene in this episode that you want to talk about now?
I mean, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I could talk about it all night.
Let's
Otto Hightower. Oh. Let me say this. He has done so many horrible things, and I have not been, despite my usual predilection for horrible characters, let's just say this, he did a lot of really bad things, but not enough horrible things. He was only medium horrible.
Oh no.
Tonight, that where he just went crazy on the king, he could not take it anymore. Now, I disagree with him a little bit. I think that the decapitating of the young prince, I think will carry weight over some rat catchers being hung. But still, he just went. I can't imagine that he thought after all that, he was like, how dare you fire me? Excuse me. I mean, he eviscerated the king from top to bottom. And that was not just my favorite scene of the episode. That is when I was like, I am Team Otto. Finally, he stops from behind the scenes. He stops doing his little plans, and he just comes out and he just says it like, I am tired of your bullshit. You are fired. Oh, wait, you're the king. I am fired.
Off the top rope, Otto came in. To me, they were all so brutal. But when he says, think of your father, and, they get into that bit of the section. And then, King Aegon's like, my dad made me king. And he starts laughing. And then what did he say? He said something along the lines, your dad was right about you. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That is so tough. And Catfish, I want to go a bit further on that point that you made earlier about how Otto so deliciously took his time, rolling his eyes, rolling his tongues. Sir Criston did what? That is wonderful. But, I almost, as much as Otto rolled his eyes and rolled everything, the plan almost worked. It was such a, kind of tossed off plan. Auric almost killed Rhaenyra. So, Criston Cole shouldn't be attacked that much. But I just love it.
Are you kidding me? Criston Cole should be attacked that much. That guy. I hope we're going to talk about him.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him on our small council debate. We're going to answer those questions. Right. I'm going to go to my favorite, and there were so many scenes that I loved, so many moments I loved, that I feel odd that I'm pointing out this one. But to me, the craziest moment, the moment where, in a great episode I love, the one that really, kind of took a hold of me is Queen Alicent, or I guess Dowager Queen Alicent, hears her son King Aegon crying. She goes into his room. He is crying. He has lost his son. Aegon has a lot of faults. We don't have time to list them all. But he has lost his son. And then she can't comfort him. She is his mother. Yes, he is a grown man with kids of his own. Yes, he is the king. But when Alicent didn't do anything to try to comfort him when he was just kind of bawling in his room, that just struck me as powerful. And so there were a million scenes I loved, but that moment, which was a nonverbal moment outside of the King Aegon crying, I thought it was strong. I thought it said so much about their relationship. I thought it said so much about Aegon for all his many faults that, once again, we just can't go through and list all of them. I thought, oh my goodness gracious, she has never connected with her son, and we're seeing it in the most painful time that they still can't connect. I love that scene.
He also can't connect with his sister wife either.
Oh no, great point. Yeah, they pass on the stairs. What do you say to your sister wife when she's not doing well?
I mean, the thing is, it almost feels like he's blaming her, but what the heck is she supposed to do?
No, give me a break. Ooh, listeners, we'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite scene, favorite moment of the episode? Hopefully you guys loved it as much as we did. If you didn't, of course, reach out and tell us. Go down in the YouTube comments. We want to know. And now we're going to make a very hard transition again from these powerful, serious topics to match game 2. Okay, I think this is a better question, Catfish.
All right, let's see.
I really hope. Okay.
All right.
Otto Hightower will need to update his LinkedIn page.
How will he need to update his LinkedIn page?
Under skills, Otto will list blank.
All right, I've got a better answer here. All right, go ahead. Hit me with it.
Otto Hightower will need to update his LinkedIn page. Under skills, Otto will list
motivational speaker. Look, you want the Glengarry leads?
Oh,
you don't
man.
deserve those leads.
You don't deserve the Glengarry leads. Oh, Otto, boy, oh boy. Yeah, he motivated himself out of a job, that's for sure.
Well, listen, he just needed to speak to someone who did not have more power than him. But let me tell you, yes, that kind of speech would motivate me to get off my ass. All right, Bubba, I'm going to give it to you. Otto Hightower will need to update his LinkedIn page. How will he need to update his LinkedIn page? Under skills, Otto will list
daughter pimping.
Oh! I like Bubba. We almost matched because my initial thought was daughter deliverer. But yes, we almost matched. But let's see if we match with Endless Mike. Endless
This
Mike
is pretty good.
Under skills, Auto will list power pointy swords.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Power pointy swords. A great double L. Endless Mike 03 on Twitter. Somebody who we've cherished his feedback and hilarious match game answers for years and years and years. Another person who is wonderful at these match games. You ready? Under skills, Otto will list Ancestry.com expert. That's from Jeff at Jeff Hero. That's JEPHPERRO on Twitter. So good.
All right, and our buddy Before the Dragon podcast.
Oh, yes.
Says under skills, Auto will list administration, manipulation.
Oh my goodness.
Hypocritic, not Hippocratic. Hypocritic oath expert, throws left-handed.
And we got one from our good buddy, another true double L, Dooley's Left Legs on Twitter. He said, under skills, Otto will list his charity fundraising prowess for the widowed partners, orphaned children, and masterless beasts of the Hung Rat Catchers Association. Oh, rat catchers, we missed you too soon.
Nice.
Guys, if you like or hate these match game silliness, please let us know. And if you have answers, please keep giving them to us. We are always thrilled to hear your responses. Okay, Catfish, it is time for character rundowns, and there are going to be some characters like Criston Cole that we're going to talk about in our small council debate.
All right.
But let's go first to King Aegon. He lost his child. He ends up destroying his dad's model train set. What did you think about Aegon? Just last week we were saying, is it possible he could be a good king? He could be a good king, but he is, as anybody would, he is beyond consolable. He wants vengeance. He flat out said it, to hell with peace. I want death.
He does. And to be fair, even though I love that Otto went ham on him, this is the wrong effing time to do that.
100%.
You have to say to him, look, you just have to say, I understand you're hurting. I understand how you've struck out. Yes. But look, we are going to get these people. We're going to take care of it. This is you just got to follow with me. It's when people are being rash that they make mistakes. But instead, he leaves him in the completely incapable hands of Sir Criston Cole. So I understand why he's feeling this way, and it's interesting because, of course, I think of him obviously as the bad guy. These are all the bad guys as far as I'm concerned, but I really feel for him. It really felt like I see the justification for everything he has done and is about to do.
And about to do. That is really saying it. Okay, so we've had some match game fun at poor brother Aemon's expense. He wasn't in this episode much, but when he's at the brothel, he does admit, you know what, I kind of feel bad. I kind of went a little too far with my nephew Lucerys. Any thoughts on our favorite one-eyed buddy at the brothel, brother Aemond?
Bubba, you're going to have to explain something to me and see if I misunderstood it. Yeah. Did she try to console him by making out or giving him some sort of sex, and he's like, no, I want you to cuddle me instead?
Mother me, almost. That's what it really is here's a mother who hasn't been able to connect with any of her kids. And we find out, listeners, if you were paying attention or not paying attention, you really need to watch the Alicent Otto scene, because we constantly see Alicent's 3 kids, but off screen, somehow they didn't mention it all in season 1. There is a 4th kid. There's a 4th kid she had with King Viserys, who is down in down in Old Town with the High Towers. And so We all know King Aegon, we know Prince Aemond, and we know poor tragic Princess Helena, or Queen Helena, excuse me now. But there's a third brother, fourth child down in Old Town that Otto and Alicent mentioned this week. So you always got to be aware of that. But, I almost want to finish up Otto here because he's like, you're already...
Yeah, you and the king.
You're already seen as weak. People see an omen. They whisper in the streets, perhaps Rhaenyra should be queen. And then, Otto's got to learn the time. When he says Jaehaerys will do more for us now than 1,000 nights in battle, Jaehaerys just had his head chopped off. This is not the time, Otto. Even when you're not attacking the king, your grandson, that is not the time to, how can we spin your dead son's death? Whoa. Tough look. Look.
Yeah, he really needed to moderate his tone there, and he did not. I loved it because we have never seen him really go off like this. And
no, he never went that way on King Viserys. Never.
No, he just woke up on the wrong side of the stone bed this morning, apparently.
Well, how about this real quickly? What really set Otto off in your favorite scene of the episode is probably killing, but then displaying all the dead rat catchers outside the Red Keep. How bad a boo-boo is that? Like, there's a part of me that thinks, Otto's like, hey, we're getting all these sympathy votes from your dead son. We're going to lose him because we strung up a lot of rat catchers. I don't know that'll hurt the small folk for sure, but I don't know if the other houses that they're trying to get are really going to not come to their side because they killed a bunch of rat catchers. That sounds cold, but that's the way I would see it.
Absolutely not. I said that. I said that earlier, that I really believe that one did not take away from the other. They're just, as you said. In some of the small folk will be like, well, this isn't right. But yeah, you're right. The houses, they're going to be like, rat catchers, big deal. But you know what he was, right, though? He got him. We saw the guy. He got him.
He did. One of them was guilty. Catfish, I don't want to spoil what you're going to reveal later about which team you're on, but our boy Larys Strong, Clubfoot, he didn't appear in the episode too much. He comes in, his team did catch Blood, the former Gold Cloak.
And you think that would raise his estimate up in the eyes of our young king?
And how about the classic Blood? Are you going to hurt me, Larys? No, but I can't vouch for his grace. Larys gets him. He's a rat catcher. He caught these guys. But you're right. He just wasn't in the right place at the right time to suddenly be an impulse hire for Hand of the King. Is Larys now going to be turning on Criston Cole? What do you think, Larys? How do you feel he did in this episode? Where does he go next, in your opinion?
He did great. He caught, he caught the culprit. It was his reason it was because of what he did that the prince was able to have an open casket ceremony. Although
man, that was tough.
You worried like I was that
when the wheel was trapped,
cobblestone streets that maybe the head might have popped off?
Yeah, you sew that thing on tight. Oh my goodness gracious.
I feel like if this was Game of Thrones, that head would have popped off. Come on, nut up, House of the Dragon, nut up.
Well, let's burn through King's Landing and Team Green here for a bit. Queen Alicent, she, like I said, she couldn't comfort her crying son, her dad. She saw her dad get fired from Hand of the King once. Guess what? He's been hired and fired from Hand of the King a second time. Once this season too. Alicent, she keeps saying, I've sinned, I've sinned, I've sinned. And technically, yes, she's a widow. She's single. Her husband is dead. But having sex outside wedlock, and probably when you're supposed to still be mourning your dead husband, the king, but, she's finally getting passion from Criston Cole. Any thoughts on Alicent? What can Alicent do? Alicent is, is in deep doo, but what can she do?
My concern, Bubba, is more for this. I mean, you know what? Maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Maybe I'm,
yes, you are.
You know, what people see, I can't remember what movie this quote is. I just like a lollipop in my mouth and a thumb in my ass. But you know, you would think that her relationship with him is so fresh that they don't need to spice it up with a little S&M. But it seems like they're trending that way.
You know what? When your blood's going, and I don't mean blood, the prince killing blood, but when your blood's going and your passion's going and you feel like, what have you got to lose? Like the world has gone to hell. Why not have a couple moments of passion? I say, go girl.
All right.
All right. We're not going to talk about Criston Cole because he's coming up in the small council, but in King's Landing, we do have Queen Helena. Any thoughts for her other than she's in a real bad spot? She is not doing well. She's going to be in mourning for possibly the rest of her life. This doesn't look good. Any thoughts about her?
We do have moments with her. I mean, the moment in the streets was very, very tough for her.
She's, very effective as an audience.
Agoraphobic. And I guess, you know, last week I was like, I want to hear more from her. I want to whatever. I guess this is just going to be her. She's just going to be the odd, frightened person. And it is, I do feel for her. I think the acting is great. And like
I do too.
What little we see from her is very affecting. Again, you know, not everybody can have their, you know, this is a story. Some people are going to be strong. Some people are going to be weak. Some people, whatever. I just would like to see more from her.
The big thing I noted is that admittedly she is in the castle, but there were times today when she was walking up the steps, when she runs into her husband, where her husband has 2 Kingsguard members walking behind him, protecting him. She had 2 handmaidens. Like at a certain point, don't you put a couple of King's Guards behind her with her? I mean, that was crazy.
It said in the episode, you know, why didn't she have any guards? But you know, you can't. If you back talk to Sir Criston Cole, you're going to get sent on a suicide mission.
Catfish. Once again, we'll save also Arik and Eric. It's almost kind of really Eric and Eric, but let's save them for our small council debates. But in King's Landing, we do have the small folks. We've already kind of talked about the madam. Any thoughts about Hugh, the guy who wants to work with iron and build these scorpions, and his wife and their struggle with their daughter? And they've been promised coin, but of course haven't received it yet. And who's gonna say, hey, King, remember a couple days ago when you still had an heir, you promised us some coin? Any thoughts about Hugh and his wife and the small folk there?
No, I just, hopefully these people will develop more. As you said, right now, it really feels a little bit just like plop. Remember these guys for later.
I guess the final small folk is the dog who got kicked last week. It kind of looked up at Cheese and said, F you, I'm still alive, sucker. Or was the dog sad that Cheese was dead? Any thoughts on that sweet, sweet puppy?
No, that sweet, sweet puppy was waiting for scraps.
All right, let's flip over to Team Black with probably the biggest scene in the episode for them, I feel. Listeners, if you don't agree, tell us. But Rhaenyra, you pointed it out, Catfish. She's having the council, and she's like, I didn't do this. We got to tell everybody I didn't do this.
Everybody's looking at their shoes.
Right. It needs one of those SpongeBob's a few minutes later screens where she's in a room with her uncle husband and saying, I cannot trust you, Daemon. Not that I could ever trust you. Have you used me as a tool to grasp at your stolen inheritance? And then his big, it was a mistake. Whoa. And he comes at her. We talk about Otto coming at Aegon. Mm-hmm. Daemon is coming at his wife saying, it's not like your dad picked you to be his heir because of your wise judgment and your ruling capabilities. I mean, That is not cool. Even if possibly it's true based on what we've seen. But any thoughts about this marriage that could be, we don't even know if she doesn't even know if she's ever going to see her husband again. I mean, youch.
Now, you know what he needs? He has got some deep-seated issues that he needs to go talk to Madame Civvy about. He needs some caressing because he feels I don't know how you can stop him from feeling less than, but he clearly feels less than.
Oh, yeah.
And has decided he is going to do whatever it takes to not feel less than. And he doesn't care whether he's married to you.
No.
He doesn't care even if he's married to you and related to you.
He doesn't care if you're his daughter. It's like,
yeah.
Not good. Since you haven't read the books, where do you see Daemon? Where do you see his story going? Are he and Rhaenyra going to be able to repair this, mistake, as he likes to call it, in their power dynamics? Where do you see Daemon going?
Well, here's the thing, right? I mean, if I'm really going to, as I am doing, deeply psychoanalyze this guy that I know nothing about, right?
Sure.
I would assume that he's not going to switch sides. And so what he's going to do is kind of what he did last season, which is I'm just going to kick ass and take names for myself on this same side. And I'm not going to have anyone tell me what to do or when to do it, but I'm just going to kick ass.
Boy, Catfish, I like that. We'll have to see if that's true, but I love that. Okay, let's go to, and this is very, very tough for me to say. I feel so difficult saying it, but we have Jace, as he likes to be nicknamed, and his cousin / future wife. Let me make sure they're cousins. I get confused. I'm pretty sure they might be cousins. His future wife, Baela, who we find out is going to start patrolling King's Landing from up high in her dragon. They have a moment.
Wait, hold on. Yeah. Are they cut? Well, they're not really
they're
cousins.
Step siblings. They are step siblings for sure.
They are step siblings, but they would only be cousins if he was actually her uncle's son, which he is not.
Okay.
Right?
All right, hold on.
Isn't he Sir Criston? He's Sir Criston Cole's son.
No, he's the strong. He's.
Oh, right, sorry. So he's sorry. So he's his son, not her uncle's son. So they're.
That's true. That's true.
They may not even be closely related enough to get married on the show.
Their relationship is doomed. Wait, she is definitely his mom's uncle's child. That is definitely I don't know what the relation of that would be. Well, it's his mom's cousin then. It's his mom's direct cousin, and then is he a second cousin? Whatever, okay. But what's going to be terrible is that, Jace, yeah. I feel like we've had a whole season of Jace and now 2 episodes of season 2 of Jace. And outside of he seems like a decent guy, I almost feel like I have no hold on his character. And then poor Baela.
He's a total snooze fest.
Yeah, outside of Baela, who I think might have some of Daemon's fire, being his daughter, and her mom had fire. I just don't know much about them. They need, it's almost like, I'll talk about something with Eric in a bit about how we got to know these characters, but Baela at the very least, has a role similar in Game of Thrones to maybe you would say Theon. I know that sounds crazy, but they're in the background. Theon in season 1 and Baela in this, they're kind of in the background. They're not really the leader, but we know enough about Theon's character to be able to describe adjectives about him. Do you have adjectives other than, dragon rider? Is that even an adjective about Baela, or Jace?
Pleasant.
Yeah.
Friendly.
Right. We need more from them, and I assume we'll get it. We got 6 more episodes this season.
Now, Bubba, you know what surprised me, though?
Let's hear
about one of these on this other team is Rhaenys. Rhaenys talking to the sea snake, defending Daemon. Whoa, that's surprising, isn't it?
Oh, it's very surprising. I want to go the other way. I know she does it, in their conversation in bed really is about Daemon and Rhaenyra's relationship. But I kept thinking, everybody's making a claim for the throne. Rhaenys, you still got a good claim. Why not? Why not sit out the war and let them kill each other and then come back and say, hey, remember, I should have been named king all those years ago. That's what I thought.
Ooh, that is an interesting question. I mean, between them, you got the seas.
Yep.
And
she's got a big dragon,
a very small part of the skies. But you have all the seas and some of the skies.
Also on, we assume Team Black, even though they don't seem to be thrilled about going to fight, we have the brothers Alan and Adam, who once again, they're working on the ship and they have some sort of, maybe not warm relationship with Lord Corlys. Maybe he's a tough boss. Even though I saved him, it's like, yeah, don't mention it. Any more thoughts on Alan or new character Adam this week, Catfish?
Well, I mean, Alan, we know exactly where he is. Adam is super excited. He's like, I can't wait to go to war and get famous and rich. And then his brother's like, it ain't what it's made out to be.
I guess finally, I am so terrible that I wrote this in the show notes, but do you want to talk about the scene? No one wanted to see Mysaria and Rhaenyra talking, and Mysaria talking about how, and I understand why this scene is here. It has a fun little twist about Mysaria being like, but nobody respected me, nobody did this. I might as well have remained a whore. And Rhaenyra seeing Mysaria say these things and thinking, after all this time, still nobody respects me. My own husband didn't, went off on his own without respecting me last week and killing this kid. Any thoughts about Mysaria, who's now free and seemingly saved Rhaenyra by pointing out the Eric and Auric switcheroo?
Did I miss something? The last thing that I saw of her was turning around going, and then I didn't see her again.
Theoretically, I think we're supposed to assume she alerted somebody to be like, hey, I think there's an extra Eric here. We need the too many Erics cut. But any other thoughts on Mysaria? I mean, once again, I feel for her. She's exactly right. She's getting dragged into this junk.
Mm-hmm, sure.
But I have to be honest, I don't really connect with her as a character. I wouldn't mind to, because I actually think this actress does an okay job. It's just her role in this is so nebulous. Maybe that's why it's tough to connect to her. Any thoughts on Mysaria, Catfish, or should we just say, hey, the younger peacocks, let's move on?
Let's move on.
All righty. Okay, so you know what that means, guys. It's time for match game number 3. And we've got to match, Catfish. We have to match. We've had some very close ones, but this time Bubba, we have to. Yeah.
I just want to say I took a sneak peek at the question so I could try to come up with my answer. And I just have to say, for anybody who's watched Match Game, some of the questions you'd watch and you'd go, and some of the questions you would watch and you'd go, this person better not F this up, because there is one answer for this effing question. And Bubba,
all right, I'm ready.
You've done it here. You have worded this question to lead people right down the primrose path. So let's have it, Bubba.
All righty. So listeners, get ready. Here is this week's third question. Criston Cole has been named the Hand of the King, but Alicent calls him blank. All righty, Catfish, here we go. And I'm going to get the bell ready because I think this is one perfect for it. Criston Cole has been named Hand of the King, but Alicent calls him
Tongue of the Queen.
Catfish, the only difference is that I used a different qualifier in my answer. I said tongue for the queen. That's a match.
Yes.
2 weeks in a row we match.
Tongue for the queen. That's even better. All right, Bubba. Now I'm going to slide down because I don't like to spoil it for myself. Dooley's left leg says, but Alicent calls him the tongue of the queen mother. Ring the bell, Bubba.
Can you believe this? Incredible.
By the way, Dooley is also more technically correct than the two of us.
I know. It's really, stop showing us up, Julie. How dare you? Okay,
All
Catfish.
Right, before
keep
the
going.
Dragon podcast, get the bell ready. Let's see.
I'm ready.
It says Criston Cole's been named Hand of the King, but Alicent calls him the stimulator of the Dowager Treasure. And that's when the audience goes, oh.
Oh, he tried.
All right, here we go. Endless Mike.
Mike.
Criston Cole's been named Hand of the King, but Alicent calls him Swordmaster.
Oh, pretty good. No, that's pretty good. Come on, that's
Hand
pretty good.
of the King. Come on, you've got to do it. Look, I'm just going to say the audience is booing, not me. All right. Link Hogthrob at Match Test Lab 1.
Yeah.
Criston Cole's been named Hand of the King, but Alicent calls him a cunning linguist. Now, it's got to be, no, do not touch that bell.
These are good. The bell is safe. The bell is safe.
All right, Jeff, so many more people responded to this actually decent match game question. Jeff at Jeff, that's PH, Pero says, Criston Cole's been named Hand of the King, but Alicent calls him punching bag.
Jeff was great last season, if I remember correctly. He's pretty much 2 for 2 on this one. Here, I'll read a couple.
Oh my God, we still have more? This is what happens, Bubba, when we have a good one. All right, let's go. Do it.
All right, so Criston Cole's been named Hand of the King. Alicent calls him her double P.
Her double P?
Problematic plaything.
Oh, that is good.
That's our good friend at Kelly Underfoot on Twitter. So many good people. Okay, Catfish, guess what? The bell is getting warm. You ready?
Yep.
Alicent calls him her sworn sword. That is a match in sword.
What do you mean?
I think that's good. Albert at a godless
with Endless Mike. Oh,
he matched with Endless Mike. And then my favorite. I saved this one to last. Listeners, you could still answer, but this was my favorite one. So Catfish, I'm going to read the question, and then I want you to read the answer from Nicole, who's at Night Wolf Nim on Twitter. Because this is actually, to me, this is the true better. Criston Cole has been named the Hand of the King, but Alicent calls him
Head for the Queen.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
That's a good one.
That is good. That is good.
That is a good one.
Nicole,
That's
my favorite.
Good.
So good. Listeners, we do this every week. Once again, we have if you hear all these responses, they're from what we call our double L loyal listeners, our classic respondents. But know that friends on Threads, know that we're watching you. We know that we have some new awesome answers, and don't hesitate to reach out. Oh, that was good. That one good question out of 3. We end on the high.
The perfect. Yeah. We finished the way Alicent did.
Hey. Put your ball in the dish. It's time to talk the small council. Question 1 on this week's small council.
Yeah.
Who would be a worse Hand of the King than Sir Criston Cole? Now, Catfish, this question presupposes that Criston Cole is a terrible choice for Hand of the King. Do you want to debate if Criston Cole is a terrible choice, somebody who is not taking responsibility, who kind of takes his anger out on Eric, or however Eric, Team Green Eric was, somebody who doesn't feel like he has anything to apologize for? Is Criston Cole really the worst, or is there somebody who'd be even worse? What do you think?
But first of all, Criston Cole is not a good person for all those reasons, but that's got nothing to do with why I am having a hard time thinking of a worse main character in this show to be Hand of the King. It is just as Otto said. He has no overall vision. For the Hand of the King, you need to know how all the pieces work together. You need it's really a political animal. You're the one who sets up, you're the one who has the spies, you know what's going on everywhere. You tell the king the situation. Criston Cole has got no connection to the broader world. He doesn't know what's happening. So I am really, I mean, unless we're going to start picking some of the young princesses, I mean, maybe the queen would be worse, but on the other hand, she can see stuff. So I'm not sure how worse she could be. I mean, Larys obviously was born to be a hand of the king. The only thing you need to worry about Larys is, I mean, and I think I was going to say the only thing you need to worry is about him taking over, but Larys knows his place and knows the highest he could rise to would be hand of the king. And if he became hand of the king, he would be like, it would be a parade of bare feet coming through his office all day. Shameful. That's all he needs. Shameful, so Catfish. I think it's undoubtable that Criston Cole is a horrible hand of the king. And I think, I mean, what about our boy who was given pony rides last week? I think he would be a better hand of the king.
Oh man,
Bubba, tell me of the major adult characters that we have here. Sure. Who would be a worse hand of the king than Criston Cole?
Cheese.
Okay.
And now, especially that he's hanging outside the Red Keep, that's, he's like, well, he wouldn't come up with any bad ideas or any ideas. So I think cheese might be worse.
Okay, so your theory is, first, do no harm.
All right, no, you know what? Once again, to give Criston Cole his due, his Eric scheme almost worked. It almost worked. And it only cost them one night. I mean, that's bad. You're down yet another Kingsguard member, but it also cost Rhaenyra a Kingsguard member. So I think there are actually plenty of people who'd be worse than Criston Cole. This is a war. And I think in a war, you need somebody who has fought in a war. And the one thing we learned in season 1, when young Rhaenyra got to pick who's going to be the Kingsguard member, she said, well, I want to pick somebody who's actually been in a battle. Criston Cole has been in a battle. I think at the one thing you definitely don't want in a hand of the king is somebody who could possibly support Rhaenyra in any way. Guess what Criston Cole is not going to do? He is not going to support Rhaenyra ever. He's going to be the most anti-Rhaenyra person ever. Now, I think Otto, of the choices, Otto probably was still the best, but of who could be worse, think about Larys. I think actually Larys could be, and we're going to talk about Larys second in our next question. Larys, to further himself, did kill his own brother and his dad, right? He killed them to show Alicent, hey, you feel like my dad, who was hand of the king at the time, wasn't really supporting your cause. Well, guess what? I'll take care of him. I'll take care of my brother Harwin Strong, who has fathered all these bastards with Rhaenyra. So Larys, as smart as he is, and I do think he's wise, and I do think he knows the way to get answers, there is no guarantee that Larys will still be anti-Rhaenyra, depending on which way the wind blows. If somehow Larys thinks, oh, Rhaenyra's got 2 feet I haven't seen yet, and he might switch sides. So therefore, Criston Cole is not the worst hand. I'll say Larys would be a worse choice. But to be honest, I actually think a lot of people who could be bought and switch sides would be wrong.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you think Alicent would be worse than Criston Cole?
Well, maybe. Because once again, it is too late. After they chopped off the young prince's head last week, Alicent still might be trying to find a way to end this, through diplomacy. And I think, yes, this week ended with Eric and Eric's, terrible. That wasn't diplomacy either. But I think Alicent could be worse if she doesn't quickly realize, okay, this is it. There's not going to be any forgiveness from either side. Both sides has lost a son. And so if Alicent isn't willing to step up to the plate and accept some violence, Alicent may be worse. How about that?
Okay. Well, I would say this. I only asked you that because I completely disagree with you about Larys, although I do see your point that he's kind of for himself. But I do think that Alicent would be worse than Criston Cole, simply because she doesn't have the strategery.
Listeners, go down in the comments, fight with us. Let us know your thoughts. If you're not watching on YouTube, if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, reach out to us. Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/PPHQ. Question 2. Speaking of Larys, Larys did a lot of good things, except he made one mistake. He wasn't in the room where it happened, where Otto got fired. Do you think Larys learned his lesson that proximity is more important than intelligence when it comes to getting that big job promotion? What says you, Council Member Catfish?
I think that he did learn that, which is bad news for Criston Cole.
No job security for Criston Cole, you're saying, Catfish?
I mean, poor Larys. He takes the king aside.
Yep.
As we talked about last week, this is dangerous to whisper in the king's ear while the hand of the king is still around and you're not in that prime of a position. And then this week he brings him the person who killed his son.
Yes, the guy caught with the son's head in a bag. I mean, great job, Detective Larys.
Yes, he rescued your son's right. So, it's unfortunate for Larys that our king has went a little nuts, although justified after he just got destroyed by Otto, just destroyed. Larys learns things quickly, and Larys, as you said, has a very he's learned that there's an easy solution to problems, and that is just killing the F out of people.
You love it. Good work, Larys. You did it, buddy.
So I think Larys will take this as a snub. And so I think he's going to start trying to knock down Criston Cole. And if Larys finds out that Alicent and Cole are slapping faces and knocking boots,
I think he already knows. But I think what I would say is if he thinks that Alicent would support Cole over him, that's where there could be real trouble, I think.
Right, but I think that Larys could easily manipulate a way for the king to find out. And that'd be it for Criston Cole.
Catfish, we need to go to the next small council debate. But listeners, I want to say real quick, this is real time. We are getting some very great answers for that first terrible match game answer. And so I want to say our good buddy Jack Klompus, he comes strong.
Oh, he does.
And so follow us on Twitter. We'll talk about some of these late arriving answers because, oh my God, this one's so good. All right, let's get to this final small council question, though, Catfish. And that is we're going to talk about the sexier golden locked twins. We had R.I.P. Eric and Arik, the Cargyll twins. We have the Tyland and Jason Lannister. Jason Lannister hasn't been seen this year. He's been over raising an army at Casterly Rock. And then for good measure, we threw in the Olsen twins. So you have favorite golden locked twins who are sexy, Catfish. Let's hear it.
I mean, unless your feeling is that building a clothing empire is sexy, in which case you'd answer the Olsen twins, It has got to be the Cargyll twins, Eric and Arik. I mean, those guys were just macho.
Yeah.
They dressed great.
When they haven't got their white cloak muddy in a funeral procession. I want to say, and this is unfair, but I just can't help myself from comparing House of the Dragon to the original Game of Thrones. The Cargyll twins, I was going to call them the Argyle twins, but the Cargyll twins, Eric and Eric, to me, admittedly there are two of them, but I still feel like Game of Thrones season 1, I knew Jory more. Jory died, I'm pretty sure, Jory died in episode 5 of season 1, Jory, because he got stabbed through the eye by Jaime Lannister right before Jaime and Ned had their big battle in King's Landing. but they gave Jory little human moments that had nothing to do with the story, but kind of little human moments. Before he died, we saw him kind of mesmerized by a woman at Littlefinger's brothel, and Ned's like, Jory, come on. And Jory's like, oh, sorry, I was checking out this girl. And so I felt like I kind of knew his character a bit more than these Cargyll twins. I think they're both very honorable. I get that from House of the Dragon. And they were put in a terrible position. I mean, both, what Cole did to Auric with the A in this episode about guilting him into going on this suicide mission was crazy. But like some of these characters we've already talked about, I don't know if I really knew them. And so their death is kind of more a symbol of how this war is kind of ridiculous between this family than about, oh my goodness, I lost Eric and Eric. What says you, Catfish, about the Cargyll?
I completely agree with you. It's like, it was sort of like they were just hanging around little bits of them, and all of a sudden this thing happens, and then it's like, it's weird to have like a really minor character just like
get such a spotlight. I mean, they really were kind of the big action set piece this week, their fight. Yeah. And it was a good fight. It was a real good fight.
It was good, but let us know. Let us know. And even in that fight, I mean, it was obvious that they went out of their way to make it like mysterious who was who. Which I think
which one died first, right? Yeah.
I think that until the end. Yeah. When he killed himself, although even at the end, it could have been Eric who said, "Forgive me, my queen." He could have changed last second. But I think, even though I agree, I didn't know them as well. It still would have been helpful. I think it would have been more interesting to know who was who rather than like I think that gives us more than the whole like, oh my God, I don't know who is who.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
All right, Bubba. Well, listen.
Here we go.
There has been a lot going on this week. We have got a lot going on. So we've got to talk about who was the team of the week, green or black? Who was the winning team of the week? Bubba, I'm going to start this off.
Let's hear it.
Because as we discussed, both teams took some real self-inflicted L's this week by just popping off at royalty.
Yep.
Bubba?
Yeah.
So this is really hard for me to decide, but it came down to a very simple thing.
I'm very worried. Sure. Yeah, what?
I'm going to take Team Black simply because they don't have a looming rat problem. Who is going to sign up to be a rat catcher now?
Oh, hold on. I need to do the thing I've done every week so far on both our Star Wars Acolyte podcast and this. Eric, it seems to me you lived your life like one of the twin. I couldn't tell between. So I'm going to go for, this is terrible. I'm always on Team Green, mainly because they are more interesting. Now, hopefully Adam and Alan, the shipbuilders, can give some Team Black some juice. And now that Daemon seems to be off on his own adventure, choose your own adventure, Daemon, I'll still be on Team Green. Team Blacks, you've got Sea Snake and his wife Rhaenys. I think there could be some fun there, especially if Rhaenys is like, "How to hell with this." Both these siblings of these distant relatives of mine are my cousin's kids. It's technically who Aegon and Rhaenyra are to Rhaenys, or it's her cousin's kids. I'm pretty sure. So I'll still be on Team Green. Listeners, who do you think? Do you have an MVP, Catfish?
Well, Bubba, before our listeners decide, and I really do want them to weigh on this, I want to remind them that within 2 weeks, the rats will have taken over the castle. That's all. All right, Bubba.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this all episode.
Yes.
How Otto went ham, and I loved every second of it, and it gave me a completely new opinion of Otto, and I love him. But it has got to be Criston Cole as the MVP.
Oh, my goodness.
Bubba, you know how they say possession is 9/10 of ownership?
Sure.
Well, proximity is 99% of being handed the king. It doesn't matter your qualifications. You just, as you said, Bubba, you got to be in the room when it happens. What about you, Bubba? Who is your MVP?
Catfish, he's also my MVP. My MVP, I've been listening to some of our friends who are podcasters, and I've heard multiple podcast hosts who both happen to be women say on the same podcast, "Oh man, I love Daemon." And then, Criston Cole's the absolute worst. Now, I'm not going to try to defend Criston Cole in any way, but somehow you love Daemon, who killed his first wife in cold blood, really treats his wife terribly. And last week on the podcast, the episode you're reviewing, last week did lead to the death of a kid. I mean, of a young, innocent infant. And they're like, oh, I love Daemon, even though he's problematic. Problematic, he's a stone cold killer. Now, Criston Cole is just as bad. He killed Joffrey, an adult in season 1, but Joffrey Lawnmouth at that wedding where Criston Cole killed him was kind of, if you could almost squint and see Joffrey was trying to blackmail him, say, hey, I know you fooled around with Rhaenyra. And so not that makes murder justified, but I think that's a better reason to kill somebody than Daemon killing his first wife just because I don't like her. And so, real quickly, Catfish.
Yeah.
I read the book. I knew who was going to be the next Hand of the King, and it's so funny to watch because it's like it could make no sense. You didn't know this was happening.
No.
What were your reactions when you saw good old Criston Cole suddenly get this role? There's even like a cutaway shot to him to be like, I don't think I should be Hand of the King. Thoughts, Catfish, when this went down on the show?
You know what? It was. On one hand, it's sort of like it doesn't make any sense for him to choose him, but it made sense with the scene how it went, because basically Otto upbraids him, and the king is like, you know what? Even this jerk over here could do the job better than you, so I'm giving it to him.
If that scene had only have taken place in the jail, it would have been great for give it to this blood guy. Wait, what? He killed your son. Well, he gets stuff done, Otto.
You see this dog? He can do the job better than you. Look at him. Look, there's a little rat riding on the dog. That rat can do better than you.
Terrible. Listeners, let's get to your feedback. We've been saying it so much. We want to know what you think. Go down on YouTube, leave the comments at WPHQ. Nina Eleanor wrote us this feedback where she said, you guys are great. Plus, that Joffrey of Podcast theme song is a banger. Oh, thank you.
It is a banger. We got to do the extended edition like the Sanford and Son.
Hell yeah.
All right, I got to read this one because I love it. Cano Fam says, hope that Alicent, Sir Lix-a-Lot, and Lord Stumpfoot meet a swift demise.
Cano Fam, Sir Lix-a-Lot, that is too good. And speaking of old school rappers...
Bubba, I'm going to have to just always say copyright Cano Fam or so props good. Cano Fam. But Sir Lix-a-Lot is incredible. That's chef's kiss.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of old school hip hop stars, LL Cool T left us this comment where he said, I'm a little weirded out hearing about how much more / less brutal the violence and torture of children should be in the blood and cheese scene. I think it was brutal enough the way it was portrayed. Oh, thank you very much, LL Cool T.
I mean, I definitely think that everything was maybe a little too cool until the off-screen sounds. And then that was, it definitely was enough.
Yeah, I want to jump in and say that I know that a lot of people talked about it, but I'm pretty sure in our podcast, because I listened to it, it wasn't me pushing for more brutal violence and torture. And in a comment on YouTube, I wrote somebody back and said, Rear Window is a PG-rated movie with no blood, maybe 2 screams, but they're not really kind of blood-curdling screams. But admittedly, Alfred Hitchcock is the master of tension. But Rear Window, a PG, the equivalent of PG movie, had more tense than last week's scene did. So I'm sorry I didn't like it. I'm glad other people did. Now here's somebody on YouTube.
I want to ask you questions.
Sure.
Now listen, I'm going to read this comment, and then I want you to say whether this comment was about the show or our podcast. Tava Heaton says, I was a little disappointed. You know what? They must be talking about the show because they were a lot disappointed by
our podcast. Now, Pippi Shanks wrote, there is no way the production team was going to traumatize those child actors to give us a book-accurate blood and cheese scene.
Bubba, absolutely false. I was on a 3-camera comedy years and years and years ago when they had 3-camera comedies, and we were all singing towards a child. We were singing a song at a child, and they had twins there because one of them was so traumatized by 7 adults singing at him that he just started screaming. People in productions will traumatize children just as much as they have to get the shot.
Well, Nick also felt the same thing. He's like, how are they supposed to have a child who's maybe 5 or 6 act out that brutal scene? Now, Gina, our good friend from the DVR, Gina from the DVR podcast, kind of felt like I did. She wrote, I felt the whole lead up to Blood and Cheese murder, and the final scene itself was pretty clumsy and clunky. I had double D's for the episode as well, but it was Dornish blank, a la Alicent getting it from Criston Cole. LOL. Dornish D.
Oh, man. Our good old friend, at PatMan23, Pat Spinagle says, I'm a fan of the episode, both the show and the respective podcast. It was great hearing the Joffrey of podcasts back. Of course, great seeing Tywin Lannister, the great, etc. relative of His Grace King Joffrey. I might have overused the word great in the above comment, but I refuse to edit it no matter how much Otto tells me that I should.
Well, you can fire Otto, Pat. It's okay. And a good buddy, Seth Bell.
But Patman was right, because it turns out Otto will really upbraid you for getting things wrong.
Oh, man. Our good buddy Seth Bell watched the episode. It was too late to get in his rating in last week's podcast, but for the first episode, he said a lot of setup. It was not great. He only rated it 2 out of 10 single Bs.
Wait, single Bs?
Boring. Or he said, well, if I must, I'll only rate it 2 out of 10 triple Cs.
Okay, triple Cs?
Carved cute children. Oh, Seth, I hope you like this episode like we did. Now, our good buddy Harley Camille at Harley Camille on Twitter said she finally watched this episode of House of the Dragon. She was out of the country and she's excited for Game of Thrones content. And here's somebody answering our question. Harley Camille is hashtag Team Black. She has read the book, so she's curious how they're going to change things. I do find it hard to like any of the characters or care if they will die. But so they can all be these characters. They can all be so horribly wonderful.
Well, I mean, I think Harley is repeating the things we have said. We need to know more before you kill someone. You know, there's a reason why most horror movies, they give you a little opening scare so that you're like, okay, there's a horror movie, and then they freaking let you know who the characters are. And, you know, now me and Ms. Catfish, we're of an age that we just want to see these youngsters behave badly enough that we want them all killed.
Oh, how terrible.
But yes, let us know the people. James C.
Yes.
Interesting. I love this show talk.
I do too.
House of the Dragon just plays these moments differently to Game of Thrones. And to me personally, House of the Dragon feels more like the bleakness of the world of A Song of Ice and Fire than the spectacle of Game of Thrones ever was. Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad was a show geared toward dramatic moments. House of the Dragon and Better Call Saul is more about everything around those moments and plays them out in a way that feels slower, less brutal, and more bleak and dread.
Love that Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul analogy from James. Now, Coney Island gave us this feedback. They wrote, it's easy to write a woman screaming and throwing up, but the brutally real, emotionally twisted human reaction that the actress who plays Queen Helena, Fia, managed using only her eyes is more impactful to this writer. They said, instead of screams and thrashes, I could feel the utter pain, terror, and despair just by looking through her eyes. Helena's freeze frame reaction was on point with her Cassandra-coded character, and it was absolutely devastating. The total silence surrounding Blood and Cheese, the aftermath, made it more jarring. The whole scene was filmed as if it was Helena's nightmare, only to realize there was no waking up. Wonderful feedback this week.
That is a great comment. You know what I feel like? Coney Island just did to you what Otto did to the king in tonight's episode. Just
good word.
Smacked you down, told you in great and glorious detail why you were so wrong last week, and I appreciate it.
Hey, keep giving it. Now, I mentioned I didn't get notices last week from people responding to our match game question on Threads. So real quickly, let's go through some of the answers last week on our match game question from season 1. King Aegon doesn't want to be known as the magnanimous. He should go by Aegon the blank. And our good buddy at Satan Claus, at Claus Sons on Twitter, he should go by Aegon the sheep hoarder. Oh, that's so unfair.
It's Naughty Pod says he should go by Aegon the usurper. Oh, sorry. Ooh. Aegon. It's Naughty Pod said Aegon the hilarious.
Aegon was pretty funny last week. I didn't have so many laughs this week, but Catfish, we did have some matches because Mouthy Girl with a U, Mouthy Girl on Threads said Aegon should be known as Aegon the Usurper, as did somebody who goes by Wondrous Lit on Threads. That's 2 usurpers. Wonderful work.
All right. And Apostate _J says he should go by Aegon the Unready. Throwback to Ethelred the Unready, Saxon King of England.
So good. And our final one is that Nobles Joseph wrote Aegon should go by Aegon the Mad AF after the last episode where his son was killed.
All right, Bubba. Now you said we've got some late arriving responses to some of tonight's match game questions. Do you have the nimbleness to prepare these questions?
Yes, I dropped the link down in the chat there, Catfish, underneath reviews. So real quick, that was about what depressed Aemon asked for the brothel. Our buddy Jack Klompa said, and you've got to think about this and think of how Aegon looks. And so he's like, what did he ask Aegon to do at the brothel? He asked the madam to play the whole Nelson album. Now that is so brilliant. If you remember that terrible, possibly wonderful 80s group, the Nelsons, with their straight white blonde hair.
Oh my God.
That's pretty good. We also had from Jeff, who said, what did he ask them to do? He asked them to light 350 candles. Because there's so many candles in that scene. Link Hogthrob said he asked the madam to blank is blank. Oh, way to keep that clean. Matt's Test Lab. And Endless Mike, who's at Endless Mike 03 on Twitter, he said he asked the madam to flog the one-eyed snake, which I think actually is a match too. Good work.
Love it.
Well, this was a super long podcast, but this was a super long episode, over an hour. Catfish, are you okay with 67-minute episodes?
Yo, Bubba, I'm all good with it as long as I don't think they're way too long.
Okay. Hey, for everybody here on the Joffrey podcast, my name's Bubba. You can find me on all social media at FitInTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FitInTrim on social media.
And I am Catfish. You can hit me on all non-Elon Musk social media at G to the man. That is GEETOTHEMAN. And we will talk to you next week on the Joffrey of Podcasts. 11 years and counting, and it's perfect.